Hello, brother Chauncey. How you doing? Peace. All right, good afternoon, everybody. Peace and power elevation be to all of you. This your girl Tiffany coming through here live in effect on this beautiful Monday. All right, beautiful Monday on November the 29th, 2021. I hope you guys enjoyed your Thanksgiving, your commemoration day. I know you guys celebrated with your family. So speaking of food and meal, today's topic I want to put my focus on talking about a magnificent woman whose name is Edna Lewis. Okay. Edna Lewis was a chef from the South. She was from Freetown, Virginia. All right. She wrote many cookbooks about the Southern dish, the origins, and all of that. So I want to go over some reading materials regarding today, but I want to thank you guys that have been subscribed to my channel, sharing my channel, hitting the notification bell, and all the great stuff. So please, if you excuse me. All right, so I'm back. Sorry about that. Had to make a little adjustment. Okay, cool. So, anyways, yeah, I want to talk about Edna Lewis. Edna Lewis. So Edna Lewis was a chef, and she was from Virginia. Excuse me. All right, so yeah, she was from Virginia. One of the best chef around. Okay, she wrote so many books. As a matter of fact, she wrote a book with Scott Peacock, who became her caregiver, and they both were chefs. They both talked about different dishes. So the reason why, one thing people gotta understand when it comes to Southern dish, the storytelling comes along with it. You don't just prep a meal just to prep it. You also have a story to tell. So any chef that makes create dish African American dishes, they also have a story to tell along with it. So I got plenty of cookbooks myself, and I'm a food person. Like I mentioned, I love different recipes. I love different dishes and stuff like that, especially when it comes to Southern dish, because that's how I was raised. I was raised on Southern food. Um, and I grew up in the South. So I thought that this is just one of the most important topic for me to cover. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. All right, so let me. Oh my goodness. All right, let me show you a picture of Edna Lewis. As a matter of fact, let me go back. All right, so right here, all right, this is a picture of Miss Edna Lewis. This is a picture of her, a very beautiful woman, very beautiful, very pretty. All right, so let me go ahead and go to this article right here. Is kinfolk.com. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and read from Wikipedia. So, Edna Lewis was born on April the 13th, 1916. She passed away on February 13th, 2006. She was a renowned American chef, teacher, and author who helped refine the American view of Southern cooking. She championed the use of fresh and seasoned ingredients and characterized Southern food as fried chicken, pork, and fresh vegetables, most especially greens. She wrote and co-wrote 4 books, which cover Southern cooking and life in a small country. Life in a small community of free slaves and their descendants. So again, me and Chef have told their stories by using cooking. So, and speaking of Chef, there's a brother. All right, and speaking of Chef, there's a brother that I know personally, and you guys know him. He go by name Akomfo Apin. I think it's Akomfo Apin, also known as JC Hughes. So JC, he hasn't been around for a while, but he deals with African American history. I mean, he does a very good job at telling the story of African American history. He has a Facebook page called the African Diaspora Culture Institute. I think that's the name of it. So he goes into a lot about the African tradition and the African combination of food and how African concept and customs have been incorporated into America. But he's also a chef himself. So again, they are great storytellers. They do a great job at telling stories and giving background of history. But let me continue with this biography. All right, so her early life, she was born in the small farming settlement of Freetown, Orange County, Virginia, the granddaughter of an emancipated slave who helped start the community. She was one of the 8 children. Lewis' father died in 1928 when she was 12, and at 16, she left Freetown on her own and joined the Great Migration North. When Lewis left Freetown, she moved to Washington, D.C., and eventually to New York City in her early 30s. While in D.C., Lewis worked for Franklin D. Roosevelt's second presidential campaign in 1936. At some point between D.C. and NYC, Edna Lewis married Stephen Kingston, a retired merchant marine cook and fellow communist. When she arrived in New York, an acquaintance found her a job in Brooklyn Laundry, where she was assigned to an iron board. She had never ironed and lasted 3 hours before she was dismissed. She had experience in sewing and soon found work as a seamstress. As a seamstress, she copied Christian Dior dresses for Dorcas and Vindon, then the wife of Richard Avendon, amongst other, including a dress for Marilyn Monroe. She also created African-inspired dresses for which she was well known. While in New York, she also worked for the communist newspaper, The Daily Worker, and was involved in political demonstration. So she was involved in communism, right? And not only she was involved in communism, but she was also a seamstress. So she had multiple skills. She was a chef, a seamstress, and she was very active in political parties. Like many black people that was involved in communism. All right. So go further down. Cafe Nicholson and the Taste of Country Cooking. And now, while in New York City, Lewis began throwing dinner parties for her friends and acquaintances. John Nicholson and antique dealer was one of those friends. In 1948, on 58th Street in East Side Manhattan, Nicholson opened Cafe Nicholson with Lewis as cook, which became an instant success among bohemians and artists. The restaurant was frequented by William Faulkner, Marlon Brando, Tennessee Williams, Truman Capote, Richard Avedon, Gloria Vanderbilt, Marlene Dietrich, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Diana Verlin. At the cafe, Lewis served a neat menu of simple Southern-inspired dishes, including a chocolate souffle, for which was known. After 5 years there, Lewis left Cafe Nicholson and from there spent time as a peasant farmer in New Jersey until the entire flock died one evening from an unidentified disease. She opened and closed her own restaurant, catered for friends and acquaintances, taught cooking lessons, and even became a docent in the Hall of African Peoples in the American Museum of Natural History. In the late 1960s, she broke her leg and was temporarily forced to stop cooking professionally. With encouragement from Judith Jones, the cookbook editor at North, who also edited Julia Child, Evangeline Peterson, and Lewis worked together to write the Edna Lewis cookbook. However, Joan found the cookbook fashionable but tasteless, and in turn worked with Lewis on her own to write The Taste of Country Cooking in 1976. The Taste of Country Cooking contained as many recipes as it did information about Southern and African American food. Successfully capturing the spirit and stories Lewis had to share, which was Jones' intention with the book. In 1979, Craig Calborn of the New York Times said the book may well have been the most entertaining regional cookbook in America. In 2017, nearly 40 years after its publication, The Taste of Country Cooking saw an abrupt and newsworthy spike in the U.S. sales, ranking number 5 overall and number 3 in the cookbook category on Amazon's bestseller list. This spike followed its thematic inclusion in an episode of the cooking competition show Top Chef. Wow, so, and here's the thing. If you're going to talk about Southern cooking, right, African American dish, it's best to get the information from somebody who is African American, because they would know the tradition, the origin. And a lot of times the food is passed down from generation as far as the recipe. It's passed down orally or it's written down on a little piece of paper. Okay? So that's how a lot of us learned how to cook, because we learn from oral tradition or we learn it from information being passed down on a piece of paper. Okay? So if you're going to talk Southern dish, African American dish, you better have a black person who can tell the story better. Because after all, it was the African descended people who created what we know today as the Southern dish. All right? So go down to later career. After Lewis' husband died, she returned to the restaurant business, working at such places as Ferreton House in Pittsboro, North Carolina, Milton Place in Charleston, South Carolina, U.S. Steakhouse in New York City, and the historic Gag and Toner in Brooklyn, where she worked for 5 years before retiring in 1995. In the late 80s, she founded the Society for Revival and Preservation of Southern Food, which was a precursor to the Southern Foodways Alliance. In 1989, interview with the New York Times, Lewis said, "As a child in Virginia, I thought all food tastes delicious. After growing up, I didn't think food tastes the same. So it has been my lifelong effort to try and recapture those good flavors of the past." The Society for the Revival and Preservation of Southern Food was dedicated in part to seeing that people did not forget how to cook with lard. I hate lard. Prior to its creation, she wrote In Pursuit of Flavor in 1988. In 1986, Lewis adopted a young adult Dr. Afriworki Polos, a lecturer at the University of Michigan, after he arrived from Intria to study in the United States. Throughout the 1990s, she won several awards, see below, and befriended a chef named Scott Peacock. After meeting him while he was a cook in the Virginia's governor's mansion in 1990. The two formed a deep friendship, with Lewis moving to Atlanta to be near Peacock in 1992. And they eventually collaborated on the book The Gift of Southern Cooking in 2003. Their long-standing friendship and seemingly at odds persona, he a young white gay male and she an older widow African American woman, resulted in them being referred to as the odd couple of Southern cooking. For the rest of her life, Lewis and Peacock would work together to try and ensure that classic Southern dishes and details would not be forgotten, as they were both deeply dedicated to the preservation of Southern cooking. As Lewis aged, Peacock would go on to become her caretaker until her death in 2006. All right, so as you can see, the awards and honors that she received down here at the bottom. And these are her published works: The Edna Lewis Cookbook, The Taste of Country Cooking in Pursuit of Flavor, The Gift of Southern Cooking. All right. Okay, so I have some reading materials that you guys can look over. So right here it's called The Taste of Country Cooking, Edna Lewis. All right, these are the introduction. Okay, so that's that book. And this one is called The Gift of Southern Cooking. Okay. Now this the one she did with Scott Peacock. Mm-mm-mm. All right, so that's her. All right, so basically it's the recipe book with different ingredients, etc. So spicy eggplant relish, canned bacon. Mm. Ooh, okay. But anyways, that's the book. If you guys want to check this book out, the title of it is Gift of Southern Cooking. Edna Lewis and Scott Peacock. All right, so there she go right here. And this is on kinfolk.com. Let's see. Let's see what it says on this website. All right, that's her with her niece. If someone borrowed 1 cup of sugar, they will return 2. Okay. So this is her right here. So she's collecting pears in Freetown, Virginia. That's her. All right, so let's go over here. It says, in the taste of country cooking, Lewis chronicled her rural upbringing, taking readers through a year in the farming community with menus and recipes shaped by the particular offering of each season. She writes of storing hand churned butter in the cold water that ran beneath the spring house, picking wild watercress from the streams and walking behind the pile to sow seed. In the kitchen, where everything was prepared on a wood burned stove, Lewis was an apprentice to her mother, under whose guidance she learned how to prepare 3 meals a day. Okay, every day. In Lewis Freetown, cooking was both an exceptional craft and a prize art, as a quotidian or quotidian as sweeping the floor, and also an important outlet for creative expression. It was too a way of teaching, preserving cultural heritage. Lewis menus celebrate Emancipation Day and Juneteenth rather than Thanksgiving. Lewis' pride in her ties to the African diaspora and her sense of the importance of African American contribution to both Southern and American culture is the thread that connects her writings and approach to food. As she aged, Lewis grew increasingly intended on correctly replicating the flavor of her youth. She was chasing memories and working to preserve the culture of food in Freetown and the particular piece of Southern history that is represented. In Lewis' essay, What is Southern?, which was published in the Gourmet 2 years after her death, she wrote, the world has changed. We are now faced with picking up the pieces and trying to put them into shape, document them so the present day young generation can see what Southern cooking was like. All right, so as you can see, this woman's over here prepping the meal. She's making some beautiful chocolate cake. All right. Okay, so that's all for today. That's all the information I have for Edna Lewis. And I want to thank you guys for watching this channel. So with that being said, please take it easy, be safe, peace and power, elevation be to all of you. And until next time, this is your girl Tiffany, and I will be talking to you guys later. All right, take it easy.